Annika here. I was asked a question by a viewer, Panther5031, asking me why I use warm and cool colours in a triad. Well, I try to answer in a comment, but there's so much to say I had to dedicate a whole video to it. Today I'm going to show you how understanding colour temperature within your colours really helps you get the right colour mixes for anything you're painting. By the end of this video, you'll have 3 colour triads that you can comfortably use for bright things, vivid things, and for landscapes. And also there'll be a free downloadable worksheet where you can practice today's colour triads and also your own. So let's get going. Let's start with the basics. A triad is 3 colours evenly spaced apart on a colour wheel. So this will help us see them. We have red, yellow and blue. Every colour can turn either warm or cool. Check out these arrows either side of each primary colour. We're looking at 3 of each of red, yellow and blue in different temperatures to see what they can do. Cool yellow, a warm yellow, very warm yellow, a cool red, a very warm red, a warmish red, that's a warm blue, a cool blue and a very cool blue. Now let's paint them out. We have some French ultramarine, so if you have either ultramarine or French ultramarine, they are both on the slightly warmer side. They creep in towards the red. And then the next one here on the cool side is quinacridone rose. You might have some other pinky red, something that looks like it's got a little bit of purple in it or a little bit of blue. That is a cool red. And then getting a little bit warmer now because we're going this way, we have our permanent alizarin. Now see this colour, I kind of always thought it was a bit on the cool side, but in actual fact it is a warmer red. And if you're not knowing which way a colour leans, you can always look up the manufacturer's information sheet. So now we have some burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is more towards the middle of the colour wheel because it's not as pure, not as vibrant, it doesn't have as much chroma. The colours that are the brightest are always on the outside of the colour wheel. And the same goes for yellow ochre. It's also a duller yellow, which means it's more towards the centre of the colour wheel. But on the other hand, we have new gamboge, which is very bright and deserves a spot right up on top. That's where the brightest colours are. And then we have some lemon yellow. As you can see, it's cooler. It doesn't seem to have any orange in it. It leans towards the blue or the green. And then the next colour from here is a very, very vivid blue that certainly doesn't look purple. It is creeping in towards the green, which means it's going this direction. And the last one here on the list is our cobalt blue. And this is another colour that I always thought was quite neutral, but in actual fact, it does lean a little bit towards the green. Now, to show you how you can find out, all these colours are by Daniel Smith, and they have an absolutely amazing interactive colour map that shows you all the colours, and then you can click on a colour to find out the characteristics, whether it's warm or cool, staining, granulating, and how light fast it is. And it's an absolutely wonderful tool, and the link is in the description below. To better understand colour temperature, let's start with 2 colours and I'll show you what happens. So if I was to take cool yellow, which is lemon yellow, and then on this side I'm going to take a cool blue. Okay, now I'll just take a bit more and mix the 2. and I get a very, very clean, beautiful, vibrant green. When you take a cool color with another cool color, it'll be the brightest. Okay, so let's just thin that out so that we can see what it's like in different values. Now, when we take a warm yellow like New Gamboge and take a warm blue like French Ultramarine, both of these colors now have a little bit of red in them. When we look on the color wheel, if there's our pure yellow and the cool yellow was around about here and the blue was here, this is going to be very bright. There's no red involved. But now we are using a warm yellow, which is going this way. Therefore, it's got a teeny touch of red in it already, and so does the blue, because it's over here. So now really, even though both colors are warm, they both already have a little bit of red in them. So the result here is going to be a more muted green. This, but still a beautiful color. It's a lovely olive. But that's why they both have a little bit of red in them and that one doesn't. Now let's mix and match these and see what the story is. So if I take a bit of cool yellow and add a little bit of ultramarine, it now won't be as bright as this one because it has a tiny weeny bit of red in it already. So the resulting color will be like this. So this first one has no red in it, and this has a tiny minuscule bit of red in the warm blue. Now let's take a warm yellow. This is now the one with a little bit of red in it. And we'll take some cool blue. So what's the story here? We have a little tiny bit of red in the yellow. So therefore, this should also be a, more subdued green. It's also like a type of olive. Now let's take yellow ochre, for example. There's more red in yellow ochre than there is in the New Gamboge. Now let's take a cool blue. So in this set of two colors, we have the warm yellow with a fair bit of red in it. And that's why we're getting a much more neutral color, because we know that a mix of all three, red, yellow and blue, is going to give us a grey color. So this can be varied a lot. Look, if I put a bit more yellow ochre on this side, it can be a lot more like that. And if I put a little bit more blue on this side, it can be like that. So these colors vary enormously, as with all the other colors too. Because our main focus today is answering the question of why both cool and warm colors in a triad, I'll whiz through these first two triads, which are a cool one, a springtime one, and an autumn warm one. If you'd like to see a more comprehensive take on the cool and warm triads, come and join us in our membership, where there's lots of tips and tricks, extra bits that I can't fit into a video, and they're available for our members. First one is a cool triad made of three cool colors, which are lemon yellow, phthalo blue, green shade, and quinacridone rose. It's a springtime triad, ideal for beautiful, sunny, bright things. And just to illustrate, I'll just paint a quick leaf. It's important, though, to include a cool colour wheel and a warm colour wheel so that we can compare with the mixed colour wheels. Now let's have a quick look at an all-warm triad consisting of New Gamboge, French Ultramarine Blue and Permanent Alizarin. Here the colours are much warmer and are ideal for flowers, still lifes, with fruit and flowers, and especially sunsets. I'll paint a quick red apple for illustration. For this apple, I'm starting with a light wash of New Gamboge, and then while it's still wet, dropping in some permanent alizarin. Then after this layer dried, I strengthened the red and added some ultramarine to the right hand side to mix a brown. Just adding a few more layers to this, and here we have an all-warm apple. Any questions? Feel free to ask. Leave a comment below. Okay, now it's time to explore our mixed triad. I'm going to use Azo Yellow, which is a cool yellow. Cobalt Blue is also a cool leaning blue. Okay, and for a red, I'm going to use Quinacridone Coral. I love this colour. It's an absolutely beautiful warm red. So we have 2 cools and 1 warm. So now let's go to secondaries. A little bit of yellow to the blue to make a darker green. And now adding more yellow to make it warmer. As it moves towards yellow, it gets warmer. Okay, now I'm moving over to cobalt and adding a little bit of red. All right, now to this purple, adding more red. And now my red is a bit contaminated, so I want to wipe that away. Get a bit of fresh red and add a bit of yellow to it. And more yellow. Now it's time to mix a natural neutral out of these colours, which is mainly blue, a little bit of red, and a tiny touch of yellow. Now to test out the neutral. Here's a little landscape using this triad, starting with a bit of orange in the middle, adding some rose above it and cobalt at the top. The foreground is orange with a bit of blue in it. And some complement added to the blue for the closer hills. So let's see, we have 3 triads now. We have a cool one with a leaf. We have a warm one with an apple and a neutral one with a little landscape. So when you look at these, you can see possibly that this one is screaming springtime. And to me, this one is screaming autumn. So really, the mixed one says summer. What do you think? Give me some thoughts. I actually love the possibilities I have with the mixed triad. Beautiful skies, beautiful greens that I can change into all sorts of other shades of green. Not that I can't do it with these, but I have more potential with the mixed triad. If I look at the neutrals that 3 have made, probably the most neutral is the neutral that has come about from the mixed triad. So, my friends, they're my reasons for using a mixed triad. but every triad has its purpose under the sun, and these sheets are going to be available to you so that you can paint in them. And finally, just a few tips on how to handle a triad. So we need to minimize it so that it's not overpowering. The best way to do that is to use roughly just a little bit less than half of the palette. What I like to use is, most of the time we need a little bit of blue for the sky and maybe some warmth in the sky as well, and we've got all these other colors to play with, but we're also, for the majority, using neutrals. So you hardly use any pure hues. Well, this is just how I paint. But generally speaking, I like to use a whole variety of neutrals. Have you noticed how a lot of masters, they use a lot of greys and then add only a tiny little bit of color to the greys, and they might have one prominent accent. Here I have an example of that little landscape that you saw me paint. I did it 4 or 5 times. Do you see the slightly different tone in each painting? And, I can't even actually remember the colours that I used, but I know that I used cobalt blue, alizarin crimson, and I changed the yellows and had different results. But they can all be used beautifully. You're just sparing on the main hues. So I've used mainly blues, then the second colour would be the yellow, but I've only used the tiniest little bit of the red, yet I've used it all the way through. If you'd like to see the whole step-by-step process of painting this Australian scene, see this video here. Now it's time to explore and practice. The link to the 9-page workbook is in the pinned comment and description. Happy painting!